Hi guys, it's Norman Sutherland from Higher Ground Lifestyle. Today I'm sitting at home in my study because I wanted to talk to you about some of the planning elements associated with the Campervan project Sìne van. Planning is extremely important in any project, and frankly an awful lot of the work on a project like the Campervan project actually gets done right here sitting at the desk. Specifically what I want to talk to you about today is the element of programming the project, how we identify a cost plan, and how we pull together a whole project plan that takes us from where we are to where we want to be. So I've done it all very simply on an Excel spreadsheet, and it's really important that we do this not only so that we know the order of things that we want to do, but also that we have a sense of how much it's going to cost us, and importantly, when we're going to have to spend that money. Because what we don't want is to run out of time or goods when we're trying to deliver the project at the end of the day. So let's have a look at how we've done this on this project, see if it's any good to you. So this is the program that we developed for the camper van project. Essentially, all a program or a project plan does is to identify all of the various different things that need to happen and the order that they need to happen in. And sometimes we show relationships between different activities and we show things that can't happen until something else has happened. But I've kept it very simple here. I've simply indicated the approximate order that things need to happen in and when in my overall program I anticipated that they were going to happen. It can be really helpful when you develop a program to break it into big chunks. So we split our project into 3 big chunks or phases. Phase 1 was about purchasing the van. Phase 2 was what I call primary enhancement and respray. So that was about turning an old van into a good van. And then phase 3 that I call the secondary enhancement and the conversion was about turning a good van into a good camper van. And at the end of each phase, I programmed in something that I called evaluation. And essentially, what we were doing there was taking stock before we moved on to the next stage and started spending more money. Now, the reason that makes sense, of course, is because you don't want to be in a situation where you've spent an awful lot of money and you have all the bits for a van sitting in your garage and it goes for its first service and you discover something catastrophic and you think, oh my goodness me, I've wasted my money. So that was quite a useful check and balance before we moved from one stage to the other. Let's just have a look at what was included in some of these stages, just some of the main bits. So the purchase was pretty straightforward. Phase 2, we ended up doing some things out of order. So some things here seem in a strange order. So for example, I had no intention of changing my wheels and tyres until after the van had been resprayed. But the reality is, I'd advertised some bits for sale. Somebody came along and he said, would you sell me your old wheels? And I said, yes. He was standing there with the money there and then, so the wheels got changed because I wasn't going to take the risk of not being able to sell those. So some things do happen out of an ideal sequence, and that's okay. That's opportunistic sometimes. And also some of the things that I've identified here were things that I had no intention of finally fitting, but I just needed to have them to know that they would fit and they would come together before I could do the completion. So you can see lots of different things involved in stage 2. There were some quite big things done out of order in stage 2. So for example, things that were really technically associated with a camper van conversion, we did them in phase 2 prior to painting. So things like putting in new windows, fitting the pop top, fitting the spoiler. These things were all really part of the camper van conversion, or at least the first 2 were. But we didn't want to be cutting big holes in panels and drilling holes in panels on a brand new paint job. So we consciously decided to do those things out of order because it made sense. Phase 3, the secondary conversion phase, involved essentially the camper van fit out. Putting in the curtains, fitting the fridge, the electrics, all of those other bits and pieces. And it's quite nice as well. You can monitor progress against plan and you can see where you are against where you think you should be and you can modify things accordingly. So that was how things worked out for us. Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. And as I speak to you at the moment, we are actually just coming to the end of Phase 2. The van is due to go to paint on the 1st of November. So in actual fact, I'm running probably about 1 month ahead of where I thought I would be in this program. And that has had an impact on my budget, of course, because it means I've spent 1 month's more money than I had anticipated I would have spent at this stage. So let's have a look now at the costing element of this plan. So I've now revealed some extra columns that I've got in this spreadsheet, and I have to say, although I'm doing this on a spreadsheet, you can do this on a bit of paper just as easily. But these extra columns have identified the costs associated with different elements. So sometimes these are labour costs, sometimes they're the costs of goods. Most of the time actually they're the cost of goods, because I've done absolutely everything on the van from a labour point of view myself, except from a small spot of welding that I think cost me about 15 quid, and the painting I'm leaving to professionals. So I've got the costs identified, and because I've got a cost and I know when that cost is going to be incurred, I essentially have a cost plan. I know how much money I'm going to spend and when I'm going to spend it. And the other thing that I've done here, and this is just me keeping track of finances, is after I've spent some money, I have changed the colour of the cost column to green, and where it's still amber, that's money that's still to be spent. But in my coded way, it's money that's to be spent, but I know where the money's going. There are still 1 or 2 things in the cost plan that have got costs against them that are red, and these are things where I know I'm going to have to buy something, but I haven't decided on who the supplier is yet. And I also have a separate column in this spreadsheet that identifies the suppliers that I've used for all of these different goods. So you can see, for example, sink and hob. I know it's going to cost me about £350 for the sink and hob I'm after. A fridge, I know it's going to cost me about £550, but I don't yet know who the suppliers of those things are going to be. You can also see what the total anticipated cost of my project was. And I'm being completely open here. Total cost of the project was about £19,000, or will be about £19,000 to me. But I'm also taking off that budget some of the things that I've managed to sell. So for example, I've sold a roof rack, I've sold the wheels, I've sold different bits and pieces. So the actual outstanding balance to me is around £18,500. I've also identified what my total budget was, and our total budget we agreed at the end of the day was £19,000. So I've still got about £529 available in the budget for other bits and pieces that might come along. Now that's quite a lot of money, obviously, for the conversion of an old camper van that only cost me £3,500–4,000 at the end of the day. But we thought that that was money well spent, and frankly, we also thought that there are a number of the elements within here that we saw as an investment that we would potentially carry forward into another van in future. One of the best examples of that were, for example, the front captain seats. We bought new captain seats with factory swivels. Cost a lot of money, nearly over £900 a seat, but they were a fantastic option for us. They look great. We loved the factory swivel, and it works so much better than any of the aftermarket options. And we thought at the end of the day, you know what, we could buy a set of seats for the thing for £200–300 and potentially change those seats back out when we came to sell the van. So that was just our thinking on the whole thing. Another substantial element of the whole budget from our point of view was the respray. That's based on an actual quote. One of the first things that I did when I bought the van was I took it to 4 or 5 local sprayers where we are in Scotland, and I said, I want a really good paint job in this van. How much is it going to cost me? And I got quotes that ranged from, well, people saying we just wouldn't touch the job, to I think the lowest quote we got was about £1,500. £3,000 was actually one of the higher quotes, but I just really like the company that we spoke to, and I'm sure that they will do a really good job for us. Another big cost for us was the new front end. £2,800 was the cost to put the new front end on the van, but it really has transformed it. And if you haven't yet, please have a look at our videos on the converting doing the facelift of taking the van from a T5 to a T6.1 front end, and I really think that that's £2,800 that was extremely well spent. And actually, that was also factored into the costs of our respray. And we actually got a reduction on the price of the respray, given that so much of the van is actually going to be completely new panels. So it's worth thinking about that. So there we are. That's how we did our project planning and our budgeting. £19,000, a lot of money. Well, a little over £18,000 at the end of the day is a lot of money for a van. And we estimate the value of the van will probably be around that, maybe a little bit more than that. But I think it's important to say as well, and I've said this in a number of the other videos that we've done, we're creating a van for us. We're creating the van that we want. It's the engine that we want. It's the configuration that we want. It's completely uncompromising. It's a van built purely for our needs. So we think on that basis, it wasn't a commercial entity. We're not building it to sell it. And frankly, if we were building it to sell it, we wouldn't have done what we've done, and we would certainly have done things a lot cheaper, and we would have compromised in different areas. But I think that's something else you've got to think about when you go into these projects. What is the end point, and how are you going to get there? Anyway, just my ramblings. I hope you found it useful. Please, when you're doing your van, get yourself a little bit of paper. Just write down the various different series of events. If nothing else, what it does is it makes the whole process a lot smoother, and frankly, it makes it an awful lot quicker. I built an aeroplane 7 years ago, and I built a complete aeroplane in 5 months. It took me 3 months to do the paperwork, but 5 months built an aeroplane because it was programmed to the nth detail. I knew exactly what I was going to do, when I was going to do it, those times when I needed help, the jobs I could do myself, and how I was going to do every single bit of work. I'm treating the Campervan project the same. Sorry, I'm a bit of a planning nerd. But listen, guys, stay safe. Please keep an eye on the videos. If you're interested, sign up to Higher Ground Lifestyle, because we've got a lot more useful content coming. And again, as I've said before, we're not doing videos on everything. There's an awful lot of videos out there on T5 camper conversions, but we're trying to do videos on the different things, the things that we thought are really, really useful to our build, and the kind of videos that we hoped that other people had done before we started out. Guys, stay safe. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.